It's time to go live on another bicycle live stream at 6:18 a.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of December 2020, second last day of 2020. And a bit earlier this morning on the live stream, but I've been on the bike since 4:30 a.m. so I've been riding for quite a while. Done 30 kilometers up at Broadbeach Waters, just heading back south. And it's actually very calm, pleasant morning. So let me know how the audio is with where the microphone is here, and hopefully it's clear using this headset. So this morning's topic is sort of a follow-on or a flow-on from yesterday's topic, but it's sort of inspired by it. So the topic is, are you liberated or enslaved? Let's consider the evidence. So when I was a teenager and I started hanging around with some other friends around the same age group, I sort of noticed some things that I hadn't noticed before in people, probably because this was a different sort of group of people I was hanging with. And I'd been brought up to make sort of responsible, measured decisions, and that's the way that I felt is the most intelligent, wise thing to do when it comes to deciding what you're going to do. And I started hanging with some people who were quite impulsive, I guess would be the right word. And at that time I remember thinking to myself, wow, I wish I could have this freedom to just be this impulsive, to just say, oh, let's do this and go and do it, without having to think about everything and weigh the pros and cons. And there was a real attraction to me to that sense of freedom, and I thought, it must be great to have that freedom to just go, yeah, I'm going to do this, and not worry about it. Little did I know at the time that what I thought was freedom for these friends was the foundation of enslavement and entrapment via their mind, and was the start of a life that eventually spirals out of control for a number of them. And though I've lost touch with, I'd say probably most of them, those that I did catch up with from time to time, what I saw in the way that their lives unfolded from when I first met them in their teenage years was that this sense of what I thought was freedom and impulsiveness was resulting in them living lives that were incredibly unhealthy and destructive. And when I say unhealthy and destructive, I mean one of the girls I knew when she was a teenager, I lost track of her, but I did hear through the grapevine that she ended up with drug abuse problems, and they had to have an intervention. And sadly, I don't feel that it would have helped much, because what I was seeing as freedom and liberation wasn't at all. It was in fact enslavement. So let me explain how that's possible. Let me explain how things are upside down. The yogis, the ancient yogis, have the same desire for freedom that materialists in this world have. They want this sense of freedom. They don't want to be controlled. They don't want to be told what to do. I know that's hard to believe, but they do. They have the same desire for freedom. But what they understand is that the freedom doesn't come from the area that a materialist thinks it comes from. They understand that they need to be in the world, but not of the world. and that the freedom comes from controlling their senses, not from letting their senses just run wild and dictate what they're going to do, and without any ability to control them. So let's go back to some very basic examples. Let's start off with the way you probably, or the way most people start their day. I won't say the way you do, but hang on, light's going green. Excellent. That's a nice change at the world's longest traffic lights. A lot of people, a hell of a lot of people, what do they do first thing when they get up in the morning? A lot of people, the first thing they have to do is have a cigarette. Now remember, these are people that will tell you that they're free, that they make their own decisions, that they live their life the way that they want to, but they cannot wake up in the morning without immediately reaching for a substance in order to bring an artificial peace to their mind. Now, okay, say you're wise enough to not smoke. What is the biggest drug in the world that the majority of people turn to first thing in the morning if they don't smoke? Have a think about it, and I'll tell you this little story. I was down in Sydney about, it's a while ago now, it's probably a couple of decades ago. I was staying in the city doing a festival, and I am not one to stay in cities, so it's it was a bit of an awakening, a bit of a wake-up call. Anyway, I go out one morning for my morning walk before the festival begins, and I'm passing a lot of people that are well dressed in their business attire, on their way to work, walking to work or walking to the train or wherever, and I see something common that I hadn't noticed, especially hadn't noticed on the Gold Coast at that time. Everybody was carrying, when I say everybody, it seemed like almost everybody was carrying at least one cup of coffee, takeaway coffee. A lot of them were carrying two. And it really struck me to see that and go, wow, these people need a drug, a socially acceptable drug, in order to start functioning in the morning. So, when we ask ourselves, are we liberated or are we enslaved? We can put it in terms of what would happen if you were to take away that cigarette, that cup of coffee, or any other addictive behavior from that person. What would happen? Well, I've seen what happens. I still do. I've worked with people that have to have cigarettes, coffee, animal products, that sort of thing. And I've seen what happens when they don't get their coffee or their cigarettes. What happens is not a pretty sight. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. But basically, the things that the person is running from, the lack of control that that person has in their life, is reflected in the fact that if they go, say, maybe a couple of hours or something without a cigarette or without a cup of coffee, then they start to get really, really irritable, and they start to get really, really angry. I mean, it's not a pretty sight. You might know people like this. I've known a few, and it's a big wake-up call to see this. So let's have a look from another angle. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me that they were not particularly happy in their life, and I suggested meditation, and their immediate response was, "Oh, I can't meditate." And I thought, wow, that's a scary reality. When somebody says, "I can't meditate," or the variation of that, which is, "Oh, I don't believe in that," it's still coming from the excuse is still coming from the same point, which is they have no control over their mind. They just have no control. And so if a person says to me, I can't meditate, this is an extremely concerning understanding of what's going on with their the control that their senses are having and their mind is having, which is the same thing, the control it's having over them. If you cannot take control of your mind enough to meditate, or to go without coffee or cigarettes or any other addictive habitual behavior, then you are enslaved. You're not just slightly enslaved, you are extremely enslaved. You are not liberated. And you can say, oh no, I make my own decisions. No, you don't. No, you have grown up with this slogan of just do it. And this just do it is an advertising slogan, but it's a excuse to just follow your senses because you cannot control them. They are controlling you. Now, I've spoken about this subject before, but it's vitally important. If we are to have any sense of freedom, we have to be in control of that which is around us all the time, that which is sort of whispering in our ear all the time. So we have to be in control of those desires that come through our senses. If we don't have control over them, we don't have freedom. We are not liberated. There are very, very few people that I know or that I have listened to or heard of that have that control. The yogis make a point of making that a crucial part of their development is to gain control, gain a mastery over their mind. Because if you don't control your mind, it will control you. And you will say to your friends, oh yeah, I'm liberated. I do whatever I want to do. I don't let people tell me what to do. This actually does lead us into behavioral patterns that I see come up, amusingly, that I see come up with conspiracists as well. They're like, oh no, I don't follow the mainstream media, and they have this whole, like, I don't want to be controlled and all the rest. It's like, mate, seriously, you are so controlled, it's embarrassing. You are so controlled, you don't even know you're controlled. It's like, and they go, no, I'm liberated, I make my own decision. No, you're not. You're so far from it that blind Freddy can see it, but you still can't. So this is where we need to look at ourselves. If we can't go a week without eating food, if we can't go a day without eating food, if we can't fast at all because our senses are so strong, our desires through our senses are so strong that they overwhelm us, and we need to have something to eat, then we don't have control. We're not liberated. And that also applies to non-vegans, of course, because then there's another element where they can't go without eating animal products, and they've got to they succumb to the desire through the senses of having to have animal products. So again, you get this understanding that there is no degree of control. That person is out of control, has no freedom, is a slave of their senses, and is enslaved by their senses. On a business level, it's something that advertisers love because people are so easily controlled. And once you're enslaved by your senses, you're an incredible target, wonderful target for the different industries that want to sell you their products. And you'll have this person, they're doing YouTube videos, or I don't know, giving some information out about how you've got to be liberated, you've got to be free, don't let them control you and all the rest. It's like, mate, at the very basic level, that person doesn't have any control of their senses. That person will be having in their life on a daily basis, they will be showing signs that they have no control. They'll be needing their coffee, they'll be needing their cigarettes, they'll be needing their animal products. And it's like they're talking about, we're liberated and I choose to do whatever I want to do. It's so, when you look at the evidence, it's so clear, and it's so, I guess, I find it amusing, I guess, because of how contradictory it is. So I hope that gives you something to think about. If you find it very hard to meditate, to fast, to do anything that requires regaining control of your mind and your senses, then this is an opportunity for you to look at techniques to get that control back so that you are free, so that you're not just bullshitting on about being free. You actually do have control of your senses. Freedom is having that control, not being enslaved. We live in an upside down world where black is white, and people that say that they're free are not. So don't fall for the BS from those who claim to not be controlled by others, when in fact they can't even control their own senses. Thank you, Jenny, for that wonderful comment. Guys, let's live vegan and save lives. Have a great Wednesday. Ahimsa.